Good morning. Welcome to Accuracy in America, brought to you by Accuracy Academia. I'm your host, Don Irvine, joined by my co-host, Brian McNichol.
Good morning. Welcome to the early portion of summer.
Yeah, really. we're getting some nice heat here.
After the winter of Snowcrete, it's supposed to be 93 today or something. Is that one of the earliest 90-degree times for us to have our first 90-degree day in a long time? So
yeah, I think depending upon where you are, you might even break a record, or something like that. So yeah, it's going to be hot. It was warm enough yesterday, and I'm like, oh man, I'm not ready for this psychologically.
And then Sunday there's rain, and it comes back to the spring-like,
Yeah.
But I think we're done with freezes, at least. I don't think it's going below 32 anymore.
Yeah, which is what I want. I want that behind me and as far in my rear view window as possible, and move forward and take care of spring and dealing with the garden and the lawn and all those other fun things that I get to do. So
yeah, and I will say this: April, May, and June this place is absolutely beautiful. It gets lush and flowers everywhere and stuff. Just this area is really good this time of year.
It is really, really beautiful. And there's plenty of places you can go see things like that, whether or not you want to go down to the Arboretum or Brookside Gardens and things like that, depending on where you are in the area. Just lots of places, and we've just gone through the cherry blossom phase, and that was wonderful for people who did that. And I haven't done the cherry blossoms in, I don't know, 10 plus years, I guess.
So, we did it from the other side of the river the other day. We drove down the parkway and looked across at them. There's a lot of them here in Reston. So there's, I see a lot of them around here without having to go down. So
I mean, look, I'm half Japanese. I should have more feeling that I should go down there and see these trees. But part of that in me is just like, I just don't feel like going downtown. I mean, I have really lost pretty much complete interest in going downtown for anything. So I don't.
I'm pretty close to with you. It's like, I would like to go see, 5 or 10 Nats games a year, but it's a hassle. It's like, it's better to go a few miles farther to a minor league game. You can park, you walk right in, all that kind of stuff. And it's like Nats, it's like terrible traffic, and you park a long way away. It's $40 to park. And, I mean, they don't really want you to drive. So, that's in keeping with what they're trying to engineer over there. But, I'm not, when you get, the problem with that is, it's like, it's not so bad. You leave here at, 5:30 when work's done and make it down there by more or less 7 on the Metro. The problem is it's 10:30 at night and you have an hour and a half Metro ride. That's the thing people don't want to do. So.
Yeah, I mean, I've been at those games where when it's done, you're on the Metro at the Navy Yard and going, coming back my way, and I'm like, I don't really enjoy this. It's just
it's a long way, and it's crowded, and it's
it kind of reminded me of being at a Yankees when we went to Spencer and I went to a Yankees game, probably about I don't know, 2012 or whatever it was when we were making our Northeast tour and whatnot, and it was just like, it's just jam packed for stop after stop after stop, and like, this is not quite the way I want it to be. In Boston, when we went to Fenway Park, we rode the T, to the game, and it was, we actually weren't quite sure where the heck we were supposed to be, so we may have gotten off earlier than we were supposed to. I don't know. We walked around, we had some dinner and whatever, and went to the game. On the way back, we walked back to our hotel, and it was probably quicker.
Yeah, we stayed at there was like a Hilton or something right at the airport, Logan Airport, and you rode a boat across the back bay, and then you get into the Quincy Market and that part of the world, and it was 2 or 3 train stops to the T on the T, to get to the game. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah, I mean, I wasn't quite sure what the heck, was like when we decided to walk back or whatever, but it wasn't that bad because we were staying at a hotel downtown. I think we were staying at a Marriott or whatever, and it was just a matter of figuring out how we were getting there. But we kind of followed crowds, and you get to find people. And once you get into the heart of the city, it's like, okay, we can figure this out and stuff like that. So it wasn't bad. I have no idea how long that walk was in terms of, was it a mile or two or more or whatever. But we filled the time and we had a good time walking back. So not jammed into a subway or train car.
Right.
So that was worth it, I think, and all of that. Yeah. So anyway, hot one this week, cooling off this weekend. Enjoy the weather. Do what you need to do, and so it's good. All right. So news wise, so before I get into, well, yeah, I'm gonna do a couple of things. First of all, so yesterday we were going to do a show and I needed to postpone it today. So yesterday was tax day, as we call it, April 15th. Taxes were due. Um, Filing taxes has changed dramatically over the last 10 or 15 years, where you could watch the evening news shows, and the crews would be at like the main post office in DC and other post offices around town, and you'd have these huge lines of cars snaked around, and you have a postal worker basically accepting your tax return and everything. That's because you got to get it postmarked by midnight and all this kind of stuff.
They used to have a guy at Merrifield in a Uncle Sam outfit on platform shoes. So you're giving it to this like 7'5" Uncle Sam.
So that a lot of that has really dissipated because there's so much electronic filing. The government wants you to file electronically. It's more efficient for them. It's more efficient for the taxpayer. The tax refunds are processed and get to you quicker than it was if it was by paper. So we're seeing fewer and fewer of that. Though I noticed that through conversation I saw on Nextdoor, people were talking about going to the post office, and some of them struggled to get the post office to give them a hand stamp cancellation so they could prove that they had mailed their mail by then. But my thing now is just like, why aren't you filing electronically for the most part? Or find somebody who can get H&R Block or somebody to help you file those things. Go ahead and pay a little money. I mean, I was a big like TurboTax guy forever, and then 3 or 4 years ago, whatever, I said, something, I'm tired of spending time on this tax return. I just send it to a CPA. He's the guy who's done the stuff for AIM and AIA forever. He gave me a good rate. It's a lot more than TurboTax, but he really discounted his rates just for me. And I'm like, I'm done. When they process everything, we sign the documents, and then I just wait, which I am still waiting for my tax return. But at least, I don't have to go through the agony of just dealing with the big, and I know it's done accurately. There's
It's interesting though. It's either gotten much harder or much easier.
Yeah.
Like it's a little harder, right? But for me, it's like, the exemptions way up there, you just figured out, send it in.
Yeah. I mean, there's still people, I think, it's because, when your taxes are relatively simple, you have income, you've got some exemptions or whatever, it's pretty straightforward, but mine are not necessarily all that straightforward because I'm making, charitable donations to establish this scholarship in Spencer's name and all this kind of stuff. So, and so we offset that with something else. And so I was like, yeah, something, this stuff, I don't want to run afoul of the IRS. You give it to a CPA so that they fill out the form correctly, so I don't get a letter later on.
Right.
That's the last thing in the world I want. The only kind of letter I want from the IRS is like, here's more money.
Yeah, that's right.
We're going to be sending you a check or something.
Yeah.
That I don't mind. But it's like, if they try to send me a letter saying like, we want interest and penalties, it's like, this is what I avoid by having a pro involved. And I just kind of been just done with filing taxes on my own. I'm like, I'm old enough now. I'm like, why am I bothering with stuff like that? So anyway, but anyway, it's changed a lot over the years. So, and then today is What did I have down here? Oh, I wanted to ask you about this. Yeah, it's National Eggs Benedict Day. So I don't know. Do you like Eggs Benedict?
I had one the other day, last
Oh,
weekend.
okay.
Sure did.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I grew up as kind of a poached egg and scrambled egg guy, but Eggs Benedict I'm fine with.
Yeah.
I like eggs in general.
Yeah, I do
so
too.
it's so yeah. If you, I can take eggs in almost any form. So
My
anyway,
wife is watching this. She just guffawed. She likes eggs. I'll go along with that.
so Don and Brian talk about eggs and the various ways you can cook eggs and what you can put on your eggs. All right, so we're still dealing with the Iran war, but it looks somewhat hopeful. I mean, Trump has been, they've been negotiating. It seems. I mean, they've now issued a blockade on the Strait of Hormuz, which seems to be working pretty effectively. I guess an Iranian ship tried to get around it, and they were given a warning, and they headed back to Iran. So it's they understand what the rules of the road are as such, and everything with this. I mean, Iran. I mean, I don't know how long Iran is going to try to hold out. I mean, for all this stuff. I mean, my understanding that they're taking a tremendous economic hit.
Right.
Every day, is costing them a ton of money. I mean, they're not getting oil revenues. They're not able to do things. What do they manufacture?
Right. Next to nothing.
So, so this is, yeah. So every day that they're involved in this, they're digging themselves further into the hole. I mean, which I think is exactly what the Trump administration knows, is that economically, Iran is going to be a mess. Plus the fact of the damage that we've inflicted on the country, with some of the infrastructure is also another pain point for them. They're stubborn though at this point, but
right. And until they give up, until they formally, officially give up, he's not going to stop. He's going to keep going, and he shouldn't. Right at this point, there's nothing short of formally giving up works for us. Right. So, and I think that's where it's headed. I think they're pushing every economic lever, and they're doing it in a way where that harms your average Iranian as little as possible, and really puts pressure on the ruling caste.
All right, so I'm going to ask you this too, though. So when he went into this, I mean, was he not under a kind of a 60-day limit before Congress would have to actually approve doing anything further in Iran on a war basis, or is there an escape clause, or can he kind of get around that? Does a ceasefire as the ceasefire goes, does that kind of kind of extend that? I mean, what's your take on this?
Well, the Senate is trying, the Democrats in the Senate are trying to pass a war powers resolution to where, you actually start the clock tolling on Trump on how long he has and whatnot. They've tried 4 times and they haven't gotten it onto the floor for a vote. They don't have the votes, and they won't have the votes. And I think you can even see the Democrats understand that at this point, whatever they thought of starting the war or getting into the war or getting to the point we are now, that the only way out is through. You're going to have to go finish this. You can't just leave them to rebuild their program, because then they're coming after us and Israel and Europe and everyone else.
What about the economic pain as such, in terms of, the Democrats are, with gas prices that are, way higher than they were, since before the war. But now, the discussion about, potentially ending this thing here sometime in the next few weeks or whatever is starting to seem to have an effect of slowly bringing them back down a little bit. I mean,
the price of West Texas Intermediate, I think, is right about 83 right now. Which, if you watch that show, The Landman, I don't know if you've seen any of that show. It's got Billy Bob Thornton on it, but he explained all this in detail one night. And the perfect price for oil, he said, was $78 a barrel. That's enough to where the producers make a lot of money and prices are low. So, and it's $100 a barrel. He says you have to adjust the price of every product in the United States, which is true. So, so that's where they are. But And the Treasury Secretary said this morning that he's going to be watching because, as we've talked about on here, I think last week, those prices shoot up at first signs of any trouble to the oil market, and then the trouble dissipates, and it's a long time for the prices to creep back down. And he says, I'm watching to see, are they justifying, how much are they dragging their feet, and are they doing it in concert, and is there antitrust price fixing, price gouging, charges in there? So, if they can reduce the price, it would serve them to start easing them back pretty soon because, the price is falling. It's going to keep falling. And also, I mean, you've got, I don't know if you've seen these things, but so there's problems in the Strait of Hormuz. The whole world, oil tankers all over the world are steaming to the Louisiana, Texas Gulf Coast to buy oil, to pick up oil. So all these ships are just lining up in the port of Houston and, Port Arthur and so forth to pick up oil, and in Louisiana port. So, we're going to be not only able to produce like mad, but sell it like hotcakes. So, it won't go a whole lot lower as long as all the oil is coming from one place, right? Because it just, there's delays and there's only so many ships they can deal with in a given day. And I mean, it's like 80% of the world's oil tankers are either headed for the U.S. Gulf Coast or at the U.S. Gulf Coast trying to get oil. So, something's got to get figured out pretty soon because, it can't go any lower like this.
So I had, so I did a fact check here. You're close. Price this morning is $90. It's up about $2. So you were pretty close on your estimate there for what West Texas Intermediate is. Yeah, I mean, it's oil has shown itself to be very volatile. If traders think that this war is going to be extended, they look at supply and then they price it accordingly, and the price shoots way up. If they think that supply will eventually turn to normal, then they go ahead and the price gets bid down. So we don't know where it's going, but yeah, that's interesting. Land, man, I've never watched it. I've been tempted to, but I never did get around to watching it. I have a love-hate relationship about Billy Bob Thornton, so I guess that's part of it. I don't know, with all of that, but nevertheless, yeah, I mean, there is a sweet spot where it's profitable, still profitable for oil to come out of the ground and whatnot, or be drilled wherever they're drilling, versus making really a lot of money or losing money. So and there's stuff which is also, I mean, which also obviously ties to the price of gas. Whatever the price of oil is translates into what we're paying at the pump, and so the prices are coming down slightly. So now I don't know about you, but I'm kind of playing this little game. I don't drive a lot. You drive a lot more than I do, but I'm just like, okay, how much gas do I need for the next week? And what I'm now doing my own hedging. I'm like, I think it'll come down, so I'll get enough to get me through a few more days, and then hopefully it'll come down. I'll pick up some more, and do that, and just kind of base it around there. Now, when I go off to Japan and Korea, there'll be 2 weeks there. When I get back, I hope it's a lot lower.
Yeah, take care of that while I'm out of the country.
Yeah, I'll have enough gas in the car to get home from the airport, and then it's like at that point, I'm hoping it's come down. And it'll be by the time I get back in mid-May, I mean, that may be the case, right? I mean, it's a lot. We'll have a lot clearer idea of where we're going on this. I don't know. I have a friend of mine who's just he's really kind of funny because he keeps saying that, and he's into architecture and stuff like that, and he's saying it's like we should just build a canal out there, and do that. And I'm like, and I'm not quite sure exactly where you would build one and how. I mean, but it would take you it's not as like you can build a canal overnight, no matter what, even if there wasn't an available area. But I mean, it's just this out there idea of like, why with that Strait of Hormuz, because it comes so close to Iran, and they can do, they've had this heavy influence on this. If you could find another, sea route that would do the same type of thing as Strait of Hormuz, that would be nice. But
Yeah, well, the Saudis are talking about building a pipeline where you would go pick up the oil in Israel. So I mean, just imagine, the Saudis are going to send the oil out through Israel. Right? Dogs and cats are getting along. The lion is lying down with the lamb. What is going on here? But yeah, that's what they're talking about doing to get around so this never happens again.
Is that like Bernie Sanders going to, changing party affiliation, running as a Republican, a MAGA Republican or something? I mean,
yeah, I mean, it's but the thing about it is like the Saudis have the same interest in stability that the Israelis do, right? So like on most of this stuff, like they don't want terrorism. They don't want bombs flying through the air, right? They want to just be able to sell their products, have tourism, right? Both countries are deeply dependent on tourism, right? Saudi Arabia has the two most sacred sites of Islam, and of course Israel is the holy land for Jews and Christians. So, they can't have this. This chaos hurts that tourism business. Like I wouldn't go there now. I had a friend who was over there. The guy I went to high school with, and he's like, we don't know how to, they're not telling us how to get out. We got to be able to get out. It was a few days, and finally the military evacuated them to Jordan, and then they went from Jordan to the military flew them to Reinsdorf. But I mean, these are people that went as tourists on private, on commercial airlines, and they had to come home by the military because of the chaos over there.
Yeah, and well, you make a good point on the tourism part, because I can't remember exactly which airline it was, but whether or not it was, the Emirates or the El Etihad or whatever. But I think at least one of them, things were so bad that they had cut their airfares back to like COVID levels.
Wow.
So prices we hadn't seen for 6 years, 5-6 years on this. So they were. I mean, when that happens, I mean, you're hurting.
Yeah, that's right. I believe that's right. I believe that the Iran is going to have to think of itself as more of a trading nation and less as a geopolitical power, right? A formidable trading nation. But I think that they're the grandeur that has attached to that name for all these years, I think, is not going to attach to it for a while. I think that they've lost some stuff that'll be hard for them to rebuild.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think we've definitely inflicted
deservedly, but yeah.
Yeah, I think we've definitely inflicted a lot of damage there that makes it very, very rough. I mean, I think as you pointed out last week too, the for the nuclear program and things like that, I mean, we've taken out a lot of scientists and things like that. So, they've got a lot of issues that are not going to be easily recoverable, at least in the near term. But in the meantime, they do remain very stubborn about things. But reality is that you don't have a whole lot left to negotiate with, except you can try to keep waving that nuclear stick or whatever. But I think there's limits. I mean, if you're gonna lose hundreds of millions of dollars a day economic benefit, you just can't hang on very long. I mean, there's a limit to all of that. And all that. All right, so we'll talk a little bit more about that too. Kind of leads into this next thing here, which is Pope Leo and President Trump, having some disagreements about some things and all that. You, as our resident in-house Catholic, and can give me some viewpoints. I generally refrain from criticizing religious leaders unless they're just so far off their rocker you have to do it. Certain radical Muslims or something like that. But I've always tried to hold respect for the Pope over the years. But this fight between the two of them is, I don't even know how to describe it. It's fascinating, interesting, off the
Well,
rails. I don't know.
to me, it's deeply troubling, and here's why. I'm someone like you're talking about. I didn't say all the stuff people got all mad about Pope Francis, right? And it's like I didn't agree with every single thing Pope Francis said, but I thought everything he said was worthy of us considering. Like he talked about the gays. Now he never promised gay weddings in church or anything. In fact, he said that that would not be the case. What he said is, you need to love the gay people. They come to church. It's not your job to tell them, you're terrible, get out of here, right? It's God's job to deal with the judgment part of it. It's your job, as with every other human you encounter, to love them, right? To show God's love, reflect through you. So, I was somebody who did not have anything to say about Francis. Like I tried to study it and pray on it and figure out what he's saying and see how it can be useful, right? This guy is meeting with David Axelrod and then coming out and attacking Trump the next day. In fact, later that day, right? And with very David Axelrod looking talking points. Okay, so I mean, I think the Democrat hierarchy said, let's try to drive a wedge between Trump and the Catholics. I mean, church going is going back up in the U.S. and the progress is being made among white men, particularly young white men, and a lot of them are being attracted back to the church because it looks like it's a pretty good way to get your family in order, right? Your kids, like. We were talking about this the other day, you'll get a kick out. I know you'll identify with this. Is, when you take your kids to church and you take them to church activities and church, movie on the lawn and, whatever little activities, stuff they come up with. Okay. So when you get to be older and someone tells you church people are all judgmental jerks, right? You're like, well, now, even if you have grown up and become less active in church, like, that you met a lot of people who are not jerks, right? They're friends, right? You've known them all your life. They're good people. Okay. So it conflicts with that, right? So, there's a big push on the Catholic Church. I know there's a seminary, there's a prelate here on the East Coast who's inspiring these priests to go out and talk to young men, to really reach out to young men, fathers and people who are not yet fathers, right? And say, express your faith, get involved in the church. And so, the numbers are going up for all religions among white men, but especially Catholics. So, and that is not, and it's kind of a muscular philosophy, and it is not David Axelrod, Chicago level street Democrat politics, right? But he just told the leader of our church to go out and parrot the talking points of Chicago street Democrat politics, and he did it. Okay, so we have a problem here because, the American Catholic Church pays for the Catholic Church. The rest of it is a complete and utter money loser. But it stays afloat because of Americans do it. Now, does that, is this a deal where, hey, we put up the money, we get to run it like we want? No, it's not. It's not that deal because we're looking at a higher authority for how it should be run. Okay. But, if you're going to, if the guy you put in charge of making that decision, is going to go talk to Axelrod and then cut a bunch of videos, and he attacked Trump 6 times before Trump attacked him. So let's be very clear on who started this. And, after a meeting with Axelrod, parroting Axelrod talking points. Yeah, this is a bad thing and needs to get addressed quickly, because it's not that. Yeah, that's right. Yeah, well, the meme. Well, I don't know if the meme was in response, right? But I think the meme just kind of, the meme was months old and came, and it's like I'm not defending the meme, and Trump. I think once Trump saw what was in this thing, I think this is one where he wasn't really paying attention, and because once he saw it and saw the complaints that were getting registered about it, he took it down. But it's like you don't, you're responsible for what goes out under your name. So, you need to be looking more closely. Trump needs to take that hit. I will give him that. But yeah, this, I mean, the Pope's out of line here, and and the church, the American Catholic Church, the USCCB, and those guys, instead of hauling out 3 guys that were appointed by Francis to further parrot the talking points provided by David Axelrod, who is a Jew, then I don't want to know. I mean, I think that this is very political, and it got very bad very fast. And someone needs to step in and say, no, you're not leading the Democrat Party here, buddy. You're not in Chicago anymore. You're responsible for more than 1 billion people's faith journey, and so you got to get back on working on your actual job.
Yeah, no, I mean this thing. I mean, you had several things in there too. I mean, just the young white men, or the church seems to have been having a kind of a revival and attracting a lot of people to the faith. Our mutual friend Rob Bluey, I guess, right, is converting. Now,
by the way, while you're on that, he was part of. There were millions of people. It was like the biggest class of people coming into the church in 50 years or something like that. So
yeah, no, I mean,
explosion of people came in at Easter.
Which is great for the church, because mainline churches, these have struggled for years, with declining membership, people just leaving the faith. I mean, this has become
leftism is what they really struggled with. They went left, and they went woke, and now they're going broke.
Yeah,
because they were worshiping things that were not God.
Yeah. Yeah, so I mean, and Rob still looks like he's 20 years old or less.
He sure does. Like, he just does not age.
No, he doesn't. Like, what is his secret? Good genes. I don't know what that is, but yeah, it's like I've known Rob probably as long as you have. You may have known him longer because of your affiliation with Heritage. But it's like this guy never changes.
Yeah,
but he's a smart guy and has been very successful there at Heritage and the Daily Signal. But you have people like that are converting, and it's been great for the church. Religious leaders, when they go into politics, it becomes a very slippery slope, because, as you just said, I mean, was it 1 billion? It's a faith journey. This is your responsibility. This is why you're put in that position, is that you were there to help people on their faith journey. Help them understand their faith. If they're starting to lose a little bit of their faith, you're there to make sure that you or the priests and others are there to help people rebuild that, fix that, whatever along the way. Your job is not to get into a fight in the war of words with the president over politics and war and all these kinds of things.
Yeah.
This has been.
It's not your job to go pick that fight. I mean,
right.
I understand if Trump comes after him, defending yourself, right? But he started this.
Right. And that I think has been, for the LDS Church. I mean, they have tried to make a very strong point over the years, is that, we want everybody to vote. We think that's extremely important, that everybody vote. But, we generally, don't have the chapels. The buildings are not used for political purposes in any way. They're not there to be polling places or anything like that. And so keep politics out of it as much as you can. Now, so sometimes now, because you don't control every local congregation, you can't control what's said at the pulpit sometimes, because it's not, we don't have a leadership that actually is speaking every week. It's the members that speak on a rotating basis throughout the year, with some other instruction here and there as well. So sometimes somebody might go off the rails a little bit and whatnot. And I've definitely been, a party to some things where people ask me a question and I'm like, kind of threw me off, and I'm just like, that's not what I'm here for. Can we course correct now? And that's what I'm thinking in my mind, is like, why did you ask me that question? It's like, that's out of left field. It's like, yes, I am a conservative Republican, and people know that. People knew that when I was the local bishop of my congregation, my ward. But I wasn't up at the pulpit for 7+ years telling people that they had to vote Republican. The the funniest thing that ever happened during the time I've been in the church was just we had this young kid, teenage kid, who got up there, and so there's a hymn called "Choose the Right," uh, and he got up there during a meeting to bear his testimony, because once a month members can go up there and express their faith and spend a few minutes and talk. And so he was a teenager, and he got up there, and he says, just remember, as the hymn says, choose the right when the ballot is placed before you. He changed the words. And I'm sitting way in the back, and I just about fell out of my chair. And I was like, I had no idea this kid was that conservative or whatever. I wasn't paying any attention to what the politics were of the kids, that were there. But I was like, oh my gosh, I need to talk to this kid, because, and all this stuff. He later became an intern at AIM, though as time went along in his life, it was kind of, my wife was ironing one of my shirts one day, and she was watching CNN, and she goes, hey, why is Chris in line? And he was on camera. He was in line to get Colin Powell's autograph for his book, right? Oh, wow. And and he got on CNN as part of the line and stuff like that. Chris unfortunately passed away a few years ago. So I don't know if something happened after surgery, but here this guy went from being working. I mean, he was intern at AIM. He talked about he wanted to be a congressman, and stuff like that. And I mean, Colin Powell supporter, that to me that says you're moving towards the center, and at best. But during the last, I don't know, 15, 20 years of his life, he was an outright leftist. I don't know what happened to him.
Just walked all the way over, huh?
Oh man, yeah. And I didn't know that, except a friend of mine when I was visiting Utah. He says, by the way, did you know that Chris is all that? I'm like, what? I mean, it's like, you got to be kidding me. The guy that I hired as an intern and I knew from church, and he's just like gone to the dark side. Oh my gosh. So you never know. But he kept, we keep that within our circles. We don't do this as, some big church thing, kind of, we don't do this from the pulpit. In general, and stuff like that. So you stay in your lane, do what you're tasked to do with, right? I think that would be better off to do that. As Bob puts up here, and we were going to talk about this briefly anyway, the meme. Yeah, I mean, the meme wasn't like brand new. The meme had been out there, but then Trump basically reposted it, right? Yeah. And so then that created fear. I think the thing was that how he says, oh, what did he say? I thought I was like a doctor or
doctor healing.
Doctor. I was healing people.
Right. And there's no iconography, right? There's no, if you look at it, there's no God symbols in that thing.
Yeah.
So,
but I mean, it is. You get the idea of kind of the imagery with that.
Right.
You can easily interpret that. Jesus in robes and all this kind of thing and healing people. That is, so that I think that they irritate a lot of people. They irritate a lot of the MAGA people too. So good that he took it back. Mistake to even post that. But Trump is Trump. There's nothing. He's going to do whatever he's going to do. A rare time where he actually withdraws that, and it'll fade away. It's not something that's going to be a huge big deal. But it was.
He doesn't really go around saying he's God.
No, he hasn't He hasn't done that one yet. He hasn't quite gotten that far. So we have some resignations in Congress, or one resignation, I guess, on a retirement. So Eric Swalwell has totally blown up. Okay, one of our favorite guys. I mean, he had the whole thing and whatever, and he got away with that. He's running for governor in a just crazy race in California, which I believe you have alluded to, talking about because of the jungle primary. Even before this, where there was an opportunity for the two Republicans running to finish 1-2, right? And that
there's a poll out this morning saying that they're, I think Hilton is at 17, Blanco is at 16. He's the other Republican, and the nearest Democrat is like 11. So they're in pretty good shape, right? There's a bunch of them. So, and the Democrats are gonna have some hard conversations with Katie Porter here in the next few little while.
Yeah. So
And she's going to be asked to go away, and they're going to try to coalesce behind.
So I looked this up because I knew this was just getting kind of nutty. So Katie Porter, Tom Steyer, Matt McMahon, who's the San Jose mayor, Betty Yee, who was the previous state controller at one point, and Javier Becerra is in there.
HHS under Biden,
right? And Antonia Villaraigosa, the former mayor of LA, Tony Thurmond, state's top education officer since 2019. So there's a whole group of people that are in there. I mean, their positions are strengthened by Swalwell dropping out, but because there's so many of them, it still basically says you still have, whatever Swalwell had will probably just get divvied up between them, and it still won't get up to what may be needed. So I mean, the Democrats are panicking, on this.
Oh yeah, and I know my Louisiana friends are looking at this, and the name that keeps coming in their heads is Dave Treen, because Dave Treen was a Republican, and back that time, like when I registered to vote in Louisiana, it was 36-1 Democrats, and so the primary, it was a jungle primary. That's where California got this brilliant idea, was Louisiana. Moral of the story: don't be copying Louisiana's ideas. There would be 7 or 8, well-known politicians, like, running for governor or whatever, and one Democrat, and Treen. And so, they all beat themselves up, and it comes down to one of them versus Treen, and he would win. And, he won twice.
Yeah. So
that's their nightmare, is they're about to end up with their own Dave Treen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even whether or not it's Hilton or Blanco that wins, the bigger problem that they will face as Republican is the state legislature.
Right.
But at least you have somebody who can try to stop it. You can veto it. You have to force them to override the vetoes. You make California, which has got a super majority, I believe, in their House and Senate, have to work a little harder to get things through.
Yeah. So, and the thing about it is if this primary ends up with 2 Republicans on top, then you're going to have a permission structure set up for a Republican revival in California, right? I mean, the state is failing because of Democrats. I mean, that's kind of hard to prove I'm wrong on that one. And if the Republicans, if those 2 emerge, and that's going to say to the people of California, it's okay to vote Republicans in the U.S. House election. It's okay to vote for them for local people. There's okay to vote for them in state legislature. So, it will change California profoundly if they can't manage to get one of those Democrats into that primary. And if they do, then the Democrat will win no matter what else happens. They'll make sure. They may take a month and a half to count the votes, but the Democrat will win.
Right. And then we have the retirement of Tony Gonzales under kind of a cloud. I know this is kind of a sensitive subject because I know Bob is a good friend of his and everything and all that. It's unfortunate that that's happened. I don't, though I do think that maybe I may be way off, but maybe I don't know if Tony waited to see if there was something else to help to balance this out.
I think he did.
So that way, at least if he goes, the Democrat goes, either the Republican.
I think Speaker Mike told him to hang on till we got some news. Also, now the next one who they're saying might resign is Schiff, because Schiff seems to be pretty close to a criminal referral for his involvement in Trump's first impeachment.
Yeah, I mean, I think they've got that. I mean, they've got another Democrat about $5 million of PPP money or something or other. Yeah. And they've got Corey Mills on the other side or something like that.
Yeah. So I think they'll go together too.
Yeah. So they may be there'll be a little more house cleaning yet to come.
They get tricky too because as we come to these special elections, like. Who's going to run for the special election for a few months, right? So it's going to be tricky from here on out.
Yeah. I mean, sorry to hear about Tony, but Bob. I mean, I know that, as you said, you're disappointed and upset, and we're not going to delve into all of that. I don't think it's something that we need to take up. Um, so that will just become past history once all these things take effect. And Congress will move on. It's not the first time people have been resigned, and you might as well resign or retire. It's better. It's probably better than that than being expelled. So
Yeah, and I don't understand why these guys keep getting caught doing this because, yeah, there's some women who come at you because you're in Congress, right? They want to, win favor or whatever, one way or the other. But you can do that in a way that no one will ever know, right? Both of these guys are in trouble for pursuing women, sending messages to them, and so forth, right? And like he sent messages, and one woman, I guess she killed herself, unfortunately.
yeah.
But like they reached out. Like you don't need to reach out; it'll come to you. Just relax.
Yeah. No, I don't. I mean, humans. I mean, we are very frail. I mean, we do make mistakes. But when you're elected to a higher office like this, you have just got to keep your nose clean. Really. I mean, you cannot do this. I mean, and the chances of getting caught in anything like this are so much higher with technology today and everything else than they were before. Somebody's always watching something, recording something.
Right.
It's hard to erase your past history. It's just unless they're bleach bidding themselves every day or something. I don't know.
That's right. Internet's forever, though. I mean,
Yeah, I mean, so it's just unfortunate. I really have a hard time. I really get disappointed, with when I see these congressmen, they fail on these moral issues. It's just like people generally elected you because that's part of the deal that you're going to do what's good for the constituents, but you're not going to have any monkey business either. I mean,
right.
if you're married, don't be going pursuing women and having affairs and doing all this stuff.
Just go home.
Yeah, it's like in Asia they would go,
Yeah.
do this.
Yeah, and they should.
Yeah, and all of that.
Because the part of what we're dealing with here is trust.
Yeah.
And if your wife can't trust you, nobody can trust you.
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, I'm going to bring in the sports real quick, and I'll move on. But I mean, we see this, and we're having this issue here with Mike Vrabel and Diana Rossini. It was like, I'm like, whoa! I had, I never would have seen anything like that coming. But I mean, so now she's resigned, and I guess Vrabel's going to be a little bit, he's going to have to explain himself exactly what the situation was and stuff like that. But here you got, you've got the coach of the New England Patriots riding high, and then this thing pops up. It's like, what's wrong with the two of you?
You're both married,
Yeah.
To other people.
Yeah. I mean, right. And yeah, I mean,
it's not the first time anything like this has happened. That's
no, sure. It's not. It's not. I mean, I think Buster Olney had said something to the effect that this is the problem with people getting too close to their sources and stuff like that, and in this day and age, and so these things happen. But it's very unfortunate because I don't know how the fall. I don't know what kind of fall it's going to be for Vrabel, but who knows. All right, Artemis mission concluded on Friday. Splash. I mean, I was on a podcast with my friend that we do every Friday night, and he's a NASA contractor. So right near the end of the show with the two of us, he brought up the live feed and everything like that I think we got off the air before we finished. So then I just stuck around and watched it go ahead and splash down, which I wasn't intending to do initially, but I thought, something, there's something about this. I'm not a big space race guy. We spend a lot of money on this, but I don't know. There's something about just the American way and doing this.
Yeah, and being able to do lifting higher,
Yeah, and they went to the other side of the moon, and they were using iPhones to take pictures that were pretty phenomenal. Yeah. So they did something. They not only did they go further than anybody had gone before, but they took pictures, that were really good and stuff like that. So it's just amazing. And the big winner in this was Nutella. With that whole.
Yeah, that's right.
So,
I'll tell you this. Like I watched a lot of this in a restaurant, the splashdown, and kind of a funky restaurant. So like waitresses come by with 40 tattoos and whatever, and like I would say, hey, the splashdown, and people you would not think would be connected to this at all. Wow, really? And they were watching it, and they at one point the launch vehicle was in the ocean, and they're trying to figure out, because that when you first get back, you haven't had any gravity, like your legs don't work at first, right?
yeah.
It's a little bit where you get back where you can stand up, and so they're trying to maneuver these people, not have them drown in the Pacific Ocean, and get them off of the one and put them on the other. And it's a project, and like we're watching this thing, and just like all these people are trained, and all these people just do this stuff so smoothly and know exactly what they're doing, and they practiced 4 million times. You're right. It's really uplifting. It's really gives you pride to be an American.
Yeah, I mean, I think we definitely got this very pro-America, proud to be American feeling out of this. Like you said, people were drawn in, looking, and it's like, I think there were people that had not really paid a lot of attention, but you watch this. This was a big deal in the sense of, we sent astronauts up there. They didn't land on the moon, but they're basically preparing for another mission to do something like that. And they did all these things that were just pretty phenomenal. And it was, it was a US of A mission. This was how good can it be? I mean, it's just, and all of that. It was great. It does make me kind of feel like I need to go to Houston or to Florida to go see the space centers.
The Houston is cool. We were there not last summer, summer before. Went through there with my cousin. It was beautiful. That's a neat thing. We spent probably 5 hours in there and could have spent 5 more. It's fascinating.
Yeah. I watched a little. I watched on Netflix. There was a tour. There was a thing going on there with these Koreans that came to Texas, and they took a tour of Texas. And this one guy had studied in New York. He's an actor, but he's a Korean actor, so he knew English fairly well, and so he knows America. But he loves Texas, so he brought a couple of others along. One is a YouTuber, and they went to Houston, and so he wasn't as interested in Houston because he already been through there. And one of the other guys was like, I really don't think Americans landed on the moon, the first time, But then
there's a new batch of people who go around saying that now.
Yeah, but then he went through the Space Center, and then he did the virtual reality thing, right? And after that, he goes, "Oh yeah, they did."
So you see the awesome amount of like ingenuity that goes in the big engines and how it all fits together. And, it's unbelievable. It's like who thought of that? Somebody smarter than Brian McNichol, I can tell you.
Yeah, that's smarter than any one of us. That's for sure. All right, so as we get around the bend quickly, just hit a few things. I just decided to add this in because I just saw this, because I need you to explain this to me quickly in terms of, I saw something that said that Abigail Spanberger, the wonderful governor, I don't know if she's in a race to be as idiotic, dumb, or unpopular as Wes Moore in Maryland is, but she signed a law that will award all the electoral votes in Virginia to the winner of the national popular vote. Can she do that?
Well, we're about to find out, because I think it's going to get. But there were some people who did it in the last. I think Nebraska. There's a state or two that already does this. We're not the first.
Well, do they do it? Is that the way they do that? I wasn't sure they did it, or I thought they award them by district.
Well, Nebraska has a little congressional district in there. Yeah. But there were a few states that were trying to do this.
Yeah.
So it's a bad idea. It's a terrible idea, right? And she thinks she's so cute, but last election, right? Her state that went 55 to 45 for Harris would have gone to Trump, right? In the last election, Virginia would have been a Trump state because he won the popular vote.
Yeah.
I mean, that's insane, and the thing about it is like, if we change the system to, popular vote, and we take out the electoral college, okay, that's fine. But if you think about when Hillary ran against Trump in 2016, Hillary won the the popular vote by about 3.05 million votes. She won the vote in California because California had 2 Senate races that year. And so, one of which was kind of close. So 2 Senate races that year. And well, I guess one was to fill, what's her name? Well, no, never mind. Anyway, and, a ton of votes in California, came in. She won California by 3 million. She won the country by 3 million. Other than California, he won, right? Take out California, Trump won. So, is that the way you want to run the country? I don't think so. I think that's the whole thing is just insane.
I mean, as if you're as a Virginian, I mean, it's like you're voting because you want to help elect your Republican or whatever, or your Democrat. But then you vote, and those votes, and say the Democrat wins, but in your state, just like you were saying, and then the Republican wins the popular vote. Your vote, that means you basically voted for the Republican.
Yeah.
Is that insane?
That's insane. I mean, it's like, Virginia, we just gave Alabama our vote. Alabama, Mississippi, all those states that they hate, however they vote, right? That's how we're going to vote.
It was just crazy. All right. So just a couple other things real quick. So there's been this big brouhaha in South Hadley, Massachusetts. Their town is hurting like crazy. They spent too much money on their services, so they tried to ram through a 50% increase in property taxes, and they had kind of a twofold thing. And they had a referendum and whatever, and the voters shot it down. And so now they're saying like, well, we're going to have to cut back services and those kind of stuff. It's like, hello, there is something called live within your means, right? Yeah. And voters, I mean, 50%. I mean, it's like this is not a conservative town. I mean, this is liberals trying to push, more taxes, where even the liberals are saying enough.
That's right.
We're seeing it. I mean, I definitely see a lot of pushback, in Montgomery County from liberals here and there. They're just like, what is Westmore doing? What's going on?
I think that we are reaching the end of tax and spend. I think people of all walks of life, all political persuasions are saying, they won't explain it the way me and you would explain it, but people are saying, I don't want to keep throwing money into this system that doesn't kick out what I needed to kick out, right? It doesn't really work. The other thing the other force that I think is beginning to run its course is irrational Trump hatred. Like for a long time, it was just like, it was a special power of them that they hated Trump, right? It's like, you don't understand. Like, we really hate him. Like, so what? We don't like your guys either. Yeah, but no. We hate him more. He's more hateable. It's more legit, right? It's like, well, as long as you only get one vote, which we find out is sort of an iffy concept for him, then I don't care how much you hate him. You go vote against him, whatever. But, I just think that like you're starting to see people really argue about the policies, and like like a lot of times, like you don't give Trump 100% win on these policies, but you give him a somewhat win. Like he's sort of right. He's not completely right. That's all, think about like there are haters going there too. There are Trump haters going to that same space.
All right. I took my eye off the ball and forgot to run these comments here. So Bob's been very prolific here today.
That's right.
And the political career, correct? Yeah,
that's right.
You can resurrect your career if you resign. It doesn't look as bad.
That's right. Probably have to go low and work his way back up, but he's in there. That's right.
Yeah. So we'll get those in there. A couple more things really, really quick. I love the DoorDash grandma at the White House. That cracked me up.
I didn't see that. I saw that.
See this? Oh, I mean, this was wonderful. I mean, talk about a way for the administration to promote no tax on tips. They have this grandma, and I think she was originally from like Alabama or someplace. Anyway, they film her at the White House, going inside to the White House, and then she's standing there with a bag of McDonald's, and Trump opens the door. and they have a chat. She's like, hand the order, and stuff like that. And she says, I want to thank you for the no tax on tips. I saved so much money. Now there's a little bit of, I'm still a little bit of confused. I'm gonna have to do a little more research because she told him, she said in that the door exchange, she said something about saving $11,000, which seemed to be a lot for a DoorDash driver. But then he goes, he says, did they tip you? And he goes out of his pocket, pulls out something, and then hands it to her. So he's hitting all the buttons and all of this stuff and all this stuff. And I would think that's a great promotion for McDonald's and for DoorDash. I did see another clip of her on Fox where she said, it was like $3,000 or $4,000. So I think she was talking about two different things when she said 11,000 and 3,000 or 4,000. I think one is tax savings versus maybe one was what tip income was or whatever. Her husband has got like cancer and she's like the caregiver. So saving any taxes she saves is extremely important to her. It turns out though too, is that she's like a little mini celeb because she had testified on some house thing in Nevada or something like that. On something this is not her first rodeo.
She knows how to generate a little publicity.
I don't know. They pull her out. So, we need somebody to do this. She's the perfect grandma. We're going to send her to Washington to deliver this food. So anyway, it was hilarious. It was wonderful. Just a magnificent.
Yeah, you can just say hi.
She opens the door. This is hilarious. And it's like, I have criticized President Trump for a lot of dumb things he's done, but this was, whoever drummed this up, I love him. Yeah, this was just great. I mean, this makes the critics just go crazy. So I love that every minute. And then finally, something that's closer to probably Lori's heart, which was the unveiling of the Ichiro statue at Seattle. There was only one problem, is that the bat broke.
Guys, you had one job.
One job.
That's right. And then the Astros were in town for that, and they sent a Japanese pitcher to the mound to add to the flavor of the thing. We signed our first Japanese player this year, and he's a starting pitcher, and they sent him out there, and he lasted less than an inning and has gone on the disabled list. So just everything about that night was terrible.
The Astros and the Mariners have had a little bit of a rough start.
They have, and the Astros, they have like 8 people already on the DL, including their top 3 pitchers. So it's hard to win like that. Right. But they're doing something that's hurting these people, that's causing these injuries, and that they can't figure it out. And they fired the whole, health staff, trainers, have fired all of them in the offseason, hired the best in the business, people, known for like preserving the condition of the athletes. And, the results are the same.
Yeah. Well, it's a long season, so you never know. I mean, there's this, as we were saying, is that the Mets had one of the best records in baseball after the first 69 games last year. Didn't make the playoffs. So the Mets are kind of limping along now. It doesn't mean that they can't recover. I mean, they've got some of their top players on the injury, but this is baseball. It just, you never know that you can start off slow and finish hot. You can start off hot, finish slow, and then you can just do things. I mean, look at how the Braves did it a few years ago.
Yeah.
So anything can happen in baseball. That's why I love
we played about, I think, most teams are around 18 or 19 games now out of 162. So, it's not over.
No, it's just no matter what anybody tells you. They're going to be more injuries. There's going to be lots of other things that will happen.
The thing about us is like we had a 9-game losing streak, and at the end of the 9-game losing streak, we were 3 games out of first.
Yeah.
So I mean,
that's like
it's hard to get back in it,
Yeah, yeah. It's divisions like it's like when the season begins and the records tend to be close. Sometimes it looks like, does anybody want to actually take charge of this division? At this point, but it's still so early. You need to get much further into this before you get a clear view of where we're going. So anyway, all right, enough sports talk and everything like that. I thought we had a good show here. Hope you enjoyed it. Lots of good comments from Bob as always. Appreciate that. Thank you once again for joining us today. We were a day late. We're going to be airing again next Thursday. So keep that in mind, and we'll remind you via Facebook as well. But as always, please stay safe and stay well. Remember, we live in the greatest country in the world. Do not let anyone tell you otherwise. And as always, God bless America, and we will see you again next week.